Welcome to another video. And today I want to talk about being different. You see, I met this guy today, and he is so different, man. Because, you know, I'm a barber. He came into my barber shop. I'm like, "Hey, how you doing, man?" Regular barber. I'm like, "Hey, what's up, man? How you doing?" He shakes my hand, sits down, and he says, "Yeah, I'm starting a food truck." I'm like, "Oh shit." Nobody answers to you like that nowadays. Nobody just says, "I'm opening a food truck." When you ask them, "Hey man, how you doing?" Right? And we started talking about his food truck and whatnot. And it's like so crazy because he has so many struggles, like all these obstacles, all these barriers. He has to go against the government to do all these things. So many things, so much money. He's in crazy amount of debt. All these man, he's in this pit hole. He's in a fucking midlife crisis. But he's so like, fuck it, man. Fuck it, we ball. Nobody, nobody is going to be in debt. No job. He doesn't have a job. No job. An adult. Nobody's gonna be this bum chasing his dream. He has the dream. He wants to be something. You know, he's so much different. And I was like, I completely understood him. I completely understood, you know? And I don't think it's because I'm a barber, I listen to crazy shit. I've heard a murderer, you know? I've had somebody come in my barbershop and say, I murdered. I murdered somebody, man. Um, and all these people are like, they have okay lives, you know? They work. They're hardworking people, you know, who are relatable human beings, just living their first life. But this guy, he's in a midlife crisis and he says, fuck it, we ball. I'm still not gonna get a job. Fuck it. I'm gonna fight the city. I'm gonna stay trying to open my food truck. I don't give a fuck if I'm in debt. I don't know, man. It's like, and then we started talking about our peers. And I told him I call these people peers now because I don't know. They're just so different and they're all the same. And it gets to a point where, I'm not trying to be different. I mean, but I'm just so much different because these guys are blind. Of course, I'm gonna be different when I can see. You know, when I can see that I don't want to work a job and I don't care if I'm in debt. I don't care what you say. I don't care what you got to tell me. But people just, I ask them, sometimes I ask people, like, "Oh, do you work?" Like when we get caught up in the barber conversations, I'm like, "Okay, do you work, man?" And they get so quick. It's fine if you don't work. It's fine to be unemployed. And they get so quick to say, "No, but I'm looking for a job. I'm looking for a job." "Oh no, but in summers I work. I do things with my dad." You know, they say, "Oh no, but I'm about to have an interview." They get so quick to go to the system, to go to you know what I just said, to go look for a job, to start looking for jobs. And this guy, he don't even he can't even he can fathom it. And that's the thing, he fathoms it. He fathoms having a job. He fathoms not having a job. He fathoms it. Instead of thinking and deep diving into, no, just he fathoms not having a job. He can fathom being rich with no job. Some people can't fathom it. Some people can't even imagine it. Be diff be different and stop trying to be different. Just open your eyes. You know, I was talking to this guy and he said I forgot who we were talking about, but he said, "Yeah, he's blind. He doesn't see things." And I'm like, I completely agree. I completely agree that you just got to open your eyes because you're like this. You're shutting them. Mm. So you're stuck here, just thinking about not being in debt, thinking about what am I gonna do? What am I gonna do, man? Stop. And I'm glad he understands. And this is exactly why. He wants to have a food truck, but his main obstacle is all these legal issues where, having a food truck, you gotta have whatever licenses or whatever permits or whatever you gotta have. You gotta, you know, have your shit, and show it to the government and get approved. You gotta get approved, right? He needs to get approved. And I told him, look at this other guy. There's this other guy in Boulder, where he's from, where he's a black guy. He's a little, I wouldn't say he's ghetto, but he's black, so he's not worried about the laws. So he he started this, I thought was a food truck, but no, he sells food out of his house. And I went one Friday to buy some food. And it's good, man. It's good. It's so gas. It's perfect. He has a kitchen. It's out of his window, and you look in his window, and it looks like a meth lab. He has trays, machines. I don't even know what he has an industry in his house. And the law, he don't give a fuck about the law. And I told him, I'm like, look at this guy. Look, he don't give a fuck. So you can, and he's like, yes, I know. He literally said, I know, I see it. Because he has his eyes open, he sees it. He says, I know, that's why I don't know why I'm so worried. And I'm glad that he sees it. I'm glad that he knows that he doesn't have to follow the law. You don't have to follow the law. Just like you don't have to get a job. And I forgot what the topic was. Being different. Be different. Stop being scared of breaking the. Be that one guy that there's traffic here, cars stacked on cars. Be that one guy that goes on the grass. Be that one guy that fucking breaks the law, man. Just be the one that gets freed from the traffic. There was no law. Lions don't have laws. Lions don't have rules. That's why they're the king of the jungle. Because they don't give a fuck. They murder humans. And that's why they're the king of the jungle. Because they don't fathom. They don't fathom being in that being. They don't fathom being hated. They don't fathom anything. Wait, it's the other way around. Yeah, it's the other way around. They fathom everything. They fathom not killing the human. And they fathom killing the human. They fathom it. They don't think about it. They fathom about killing the human, then it's a lot. It's a way bigger reward. You asserting your dominance, your status. You're getting fed. You're having a nice ass. I'm a human with cheeseburgers and pizzas in my stomach. They're gonna love it. They're getting a huge reward. They fathomed it. And then they fathomed not having me and just ignoring me and walking by. They fathomed it. They didn't think about it. They didn't think about, oh shit, if I eat the human. No, they just worried about themselves in the moment. That's what you gotta worry about selling your tacos. And stop worrying about the law. And stop worrying about people thinking you're a bum for not having a job. Because people come in my barbershop, like I said, and they'll have money. They'll pull up in a nice truck with some cash in their fucking pocket with a job, with a secure job. And they'll be, just fine. They'll be just have a midlife, whatever. And then that same person doesn't have money, One day he comes without money. Or that same person, maybe a different person with that same mindset, with that same job, secure job, comes in, without money. And it doesn't even matter. Like, they're not gonna get, I'm not gonna see a difference. Because both of them just have jobs. One of them has a little more money. I'm talking about the people that come in, and they say, oh, I work here, I work there. Oh, how's your day going? Oh, my day is fine. I'm doing good. How are you? Oh, yeah, what did you do today? Oh, yeah, I just worked. And I just got out of work. Oh, yeah, every day, same hustle every day, man. Oh, yeah, You know what I'm saying? And then doesn't matter if you have the 20K or 5K. It doesn't, but you have that conversation where you're like, I'm doing fine. How are you? Oh, I'm doing fine. Oh, I have a job. I got out of work at 4 today. Oh, today's my day off. That's why I got a haircut today. These are all the people that are NPCs. Non-player characters. Because they're not playing the game. They're letting, when you're playing, I played FIFA Mobile, and you're playing, and then when you stop playing, it'll play for you, and it just depends on if your players are good players or not, and it'll play for you. And you can simulate the whole, for the rest of your life, you can let it play for you. Or you can see, you can go, let's see what I can do. That's the same thing here. These people are just non-player characters. They're letting their lives are being just ran how it's supposed to be ran. Ran based on their current situation. That's the wrong way to live. Be different. Be Franklin in the GTA world, surrounded by NPCs, and you're that one guy in a stolen car that flies over the fucking, you know? Be that one guy that goes in the barbershop. Oh, how you doing, man? I'm building a food truck. I'm doing something. I don't have a job. I'm outside of the system. I'm not blind. He's blind. We get into the conversation. It's NPCs don't talk about this. They can't. This guy was the only guy that, I talked to him a little bit like this. I said things. I said some things where I was like, be the lion. I said to him like that. I said some crazy shit. And he understood because he wouldn't think about, how am I going to be a lion? I'm a human. I'm a human, man, No, he just opened his eyes and said, be the lion. Boom. And then I would bring up these things, these crazy things that people can't fathom because they think too much. These things you gotta fathom, you gotta really fathom. And he said, oh, I know what you're talking about. Oh, I was actually just thinking about this. I've never met another person where I can tell them this and they'll be like, wait, you know what? Yeah. No, because he's playing his character. He's not working on, he's choosing. He's controlling. He has a controller in his hands. He chose. He doesn't want to work a job. None of us want to work a job. He's playing the game. He's Franklin, who isn't working a job, who isn't the NPC. Who do you want to be, man? Why is GTA a thing? Why is GTA such a big game? Because you're that one guy that is boom, who can, you have the option to stick your middle finger out the window. You have the option to be a random person's ass after pulling them out their fucking truck. That's why it's the biggest video game out there. Because that's who you want to be. You don't want to be the NPC that's programmed to walk around every session for a specific amount of time and do specific things. That's who these people, Everyone is. If you have a job, if you have a job that you do not say, yeah, I wanted to work here, you know? If you have a job where you're like, where you can't say, yeah, I wanted this job. If you don't have the job that you wanted, if you don't have the business, if you're not building the business that you wanted, if you're not trying the things that you wanted, you're the NPC that is following the things that you're supposed to do to let Franklin run you over. And you go, ah, that hurt. And Franklin goes, fuck you, bitch. Boom. You know what I'm saying? You know what I'm saying? Who do you want to be? Why do you choose? Why is GTA? Why is GTA about being this guy with money that doesn't give a fuck? Why is GTA not about being a guy that clocks in? Because you don't want to clock in. Because it's not what men, it's not what boys, what young boys, what your little brother that is obsessed with GTA wants to do. He doesn't want to be an NPC. He wants to pull his gun out and go. He wants, and I'm not saying, of course I'm not, you know, I'll say this to the NPC, and they'll say, "You want to kill people? You're stupid." No, man, that's not what I'm saying. Just open your eyes and see that I just don't want a job. I just want to be free. I just want my life to be GTA. And they'll think, no, you don't. Think about it, man. No, you don't. You don't want your life to be GTA. Think about all these, then they'll start rationalizing all these things. And you want your life to be GTA. You want to fuck any bitch that you want, have anything that you want. That's what you want. It's your choice if you want to kill somebody. I'm not saying do that. That's morally wrong. Of course, don't do that. But we all want a GTA. You really have to say these things to the thinker, to the NPC. You really have to over explain yourself. You really have to make them rationalize their thinking. You have to put the pieces together in for them. When you can just leave the puzzle alone, look at the box, and see the beauty. Play the game. Be different. And that's what I love about being a barber, man. You meet these people every so often. It's rare to find a guy that doesn't say, "Oh, I'm doing fine, man. I just got out of work, been working. It's been a busy week." No, you want to be the man that has these problems. Oh, I'm fighting the government. I'm fighting the city. I'm marketing. I'm building a community. You might just call it a food truck, but is he working at fucking Walmart? I'm gonna tell all my friends jobs right now because they're my peers. Are they working at Taco Bell? Are they working at Walmart? Are they working at Pizza? Are they working at McDonald's? Are they working at Chipotle? Are they working at... Everybody I know works at these jobs. Everybody. And he's that one guy that came in here and said, I have a food truck. Be different. And this is the thing. It's hard to do these videos because people, I said this before, they like to listen too much. They can't just hear. They can't just hear things and look at them, open their eyes. No, they like to. I tell my friend, yeah, there's a cup, and you gotta line it up over the ball. I was putting up on a trailer in the truck. I was trying to hook up on a trailer. And he's like, a cup? A ball? And I'm like, yeah, a little cup. And I make this. And he's like, "Oh, so it's a hook. All right, it's a hook." Oh my god, man. It's a little cup that cups the ball. And it's these people that I say things to that I talk to them like this. Why do I talk so much? Why do I yap for such a long time with no pauses? Because I know what I'm talking about. And I talk to these people like this, knowing what I'm talking about. And they love to think and they love to laugh. They think they're so smart because they're thinking. When I can prove to you a million times that thinking is not the answer, but they can't see the proof because they're thinking. They're like this, so they can't see the proof. So yeah, I'll talk to them, and no matter what, like what I just said right now, they'll be like, "What the fuck are you talking about?" And it sounds funny, man. I get it. It sounds funny. So my little sister will see me and be like, "What the? Wow, this is my brother. He's a little crackhead or something." But it's because they don't understand yet. They're too young. She's too young. She doesn't see things. Her eyes are still closed. And that's how all these people are, man. Her because she's young. That's her excuse. She's a youngin'. You guys are 25 years old and are laughing to facts, to real facts. That's the differentness. That's why. That's what sets you apart. That's why you gotta be different. That's why you gotta stop caring. Caring is being the same as everybody else. I'm gonna let y'all take your things and take this as whatever way y'all want, but be different. Become Franklin. Start playing the game. Own the food truck. Own the food truck. Quit your job. Go in debt. Have a life. Peace out, y'all.